What up, everyone? It's another episode of Capturing the Game Within the Game podcast. Another episode is in the books. It's about to go down. I'm your co-host Desmond Jones. Joined today with me is my host, my man Brady, and also my older brother Mark Jones. Today we got another special guest. Today it's my man's Adrian Clark. Adrian, how's it going, man?
All good over here, man. How y'all doing, man?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. How about you, B?
We're doing good here, just holding it down.
I see a lot of Michigan stuff in the background with Brady, man. I need to have this phone call. It's not gonna go good, man. It's not gonna go good.
Brady, quick, put a mask around it.
I'm in the wrong part. I'm down in Ohio right now, so that's where I live. So I don't think they like it down here either. So
they can't like it down there.
Oh, they definitely don't. I already know they're hating. I already know. But yeah, Adrian, man, can you do us a favor, man? Tell the audience who you are and tell the audience a little bit about yourself so they can be familiar with who you are.
Man, I'm Adrian Clark. I think I wear so many hats these days, man. I don't know if I'm coming or going. I started off as a sports agent. I was MBPA certified. Couple of clients that I work with, a guy I grew up with, one of my best friends, CJ Miles, who played 15 years in the I'm still trying to figure out if he's gonna continue on or not. Marvin Williams, who played for the Charlotte Hornets, is a guy that gave me an opportunity, and then also the late great Andre Emmett, who was murdered a couple of years ago in Dallas. But Andre was like one of the first guys to really give me a shot to represent his career overseas, man. So, and I fought while I was a boxer in college, amateur boxer, and most of the guys remember me from the amateur circuit. So when they saw I was representing NBA players, a lot of guys asked me to manage them. So I ended up getting into boxing management, which is the same thing as a sports agent. Essentially, it's just we don't have all the guidelines and regulations that the other associations may have. I have 5 books under my belt, trying to figure out if I'm going to do 6 sometime soon. I'm getting into filmmaking, which wasn't something I was actually trying to do. Is just with everything that I guess I have going on, filmmaking is now on the horizon. And the last thing is I created an initiative in 2016 to help educate and inform professional boxers on the nature of the boxing business. As I said earlier, the sport of boxing, it's like the wild, wild west. You can pretty much do whatever you want. The agents or the managers don't have to be licensed through any type of regulations. You can put fighters or the athletes under long-term agreements. It can be up to 7 years. Sometimes it's longer than that, taking up to 30 or 40% of their money. So I figured I put together an initiative called Protect Yourself at All Times to help educate the fighters on the nature of the business and help them not get taken advantage of contractually or financially by vultures that make up the sport of boxing. So from author to filmmaker to creator, man, I do a lot, man. So I hope that kind of nails the introduction part of things.
It definitely does. It definitely paints a picture. One of the things that you definitely mentioned right off the bat was your involvement in boxing. So I'm going to come out first round here, hands blazing here. So the biggest question I always get, and I'm a boxing, I've loved boxing since, Top Rank Boxing was on ESPN back in the day. So I'm a few years older than you. So I ask this question with all due respect. Some people say the sport of boxing is a dead sport. To that, you would say,
absolutely not. If it was a dying sport, then Jake Paul wouldn't be fighting Floyd Mayweather, making a couple $1 million, or it wouldn't be. There will be no interest. There'll be no TV deals, or there'll be no $1 million paydays, multi-million-dollar paydays for these fighters or for these events if the sport was indeed dying. I think what people probably meant was when they brought that up, they probably were talking about the heavyweight division because boxing was so heavyweight rich with Mike Tyson, Larry Holmes, Evander Holyfield. So when those guys retired and kind of went away, division essentially did die because we didn't have a United States heavyweight that reigned supreme like those guys. So I think people meant the heavyweight division was dying, which I wouldn't argue that at that time. But the sport of boxing dying, no, it's one of the longest lasting major sports that we have in the world. So boxing definitely not dead, not even close.
Follow-up question to that. And a lot of people, I think, with that question, like to frame it because you've seen the impact of MMA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they try to pit MMA and boxing, and I kind of say, I don't look at it that way. But one of the things that you brought up that kind of responded to the follow-up question is the Paul brothers. How do you react? How do you react to the thoughts on celebrity boxing and those matches? Are they good for the sport of boxing? Are they bad for the sport of boxing? Is it the thought process of maybe all negative or good publicity, or is all the same publicity? It's still publicity, gets the name of boxing out there. How would you
I like it, but I don't. And I'll answer the question two ways. For a casual fan, like the Paul brothers are bringing in, it's like the crossover appeal. They're bringing in fans that honestly probably didn't care about boxing beforehand, and now they're following the sport a lot more because these two guys are for partnerships possibly. But what I do not like about it is it's taking away from guys who actually do it for a living, who actually their livelihood depends on boxing. And there's guys that are 2-0 or 3-0 looking to find a spot on these cards, and they can't because Chad Johnson is gonna go from the football field to the boxing ring. So he's taking a slot and money from a guy that does it for a living essentially. So I like it, but I don't. I'll say that I like it, but I don't.
Yeah, with that, then what would be like your favorite boxing match then? Either all time or anything like that.
Yo, can you say that again, please?
Yeah, what's your favorite boxing match like all time?
Ooh, favorite boxing match all time. I'd say either Bernard Hopkins versus Kelly Pavlik, who's an Ohio guy. Kelly's from Youngstown. That was a great fight. But then also I like Mayweather versus De La Hoya because that was actually, even though Floyd was already on his high horse before that, but that's what really made him the start of the pay-per-view king essentially. So I love those two fights. I actually can go down a list of like my favorite fights, but those would be the top two that I appreciated the most.
Yeah, both of those fights was definitely heavy hitters, man.
Yeah.
Especially that Mayweather and that Mayweather fight is definitely one of my favorite ones too.
Yeah.
So here's another one for you. Who's the best boxer in the world that the world doesn't know yet?
I like Jaron Ennis from Philadelphia. I think he's 18-0 or 15-0. His nickname is Boots. Like he's going to be a very good pro. I would say Errol Spence Jr., who's from Dallas, but the world essentially knows Errol based off of the car accident, or like now he's fighting Manny Pacquiao.
Things when I was looking at some of the doing some research on you, one of the things that came up was, and it's definitely a congratulations for that. I didn't know, but in 2016, you had the Forbes magazine name you it's on its 30 under 30 list.
Right.
How important was that recognition for you?
Honestly, man, I left it out of the introduction because I'm 34 now, so I don't bring it up anymore because I'm not under 30. But man, funny story with that. I saw the magazine one time. I was in the airport and I saw I think his name is Palmer Lucky or Lucky Palmer. He's with Facebook, young guy, but he was on the cover of Forbes magazine and it was 30 under 30. And I was just thumbing through the magazine and I'm like, man, I'm 28, about to be 29. It would be cool if I made this magazine or whatever. So I ended up buying the magazine and I took it home with me and I put it in the restroom. I really didn't think too much about it after I bought it, but having it in the restroom and I saw it every day, whether it be directly or indirectly, it was kind of like a seed planted in my head. So once I think my lawyer nominated me, which I didn't know, but when I got the email that I was a finalist, that's when my mind went, be something big for me. So I started planning different things like, okay, if I make it, this is how things may go. If I don't make it, then like this is the route that I have to take. But January 4th of 2016, man, I got a call from my lawyer letting me know that I was selected. And from there, like things changed. It wasn't an overnight thing, but things changed. You know, more people approaching you with opportunities or ideas or whatever it may be. My first book came out maybe a month or so later, so that helped with sales and marketing, of course, like that. So it was dope, man. It was one of the things I won't ever forget.
No, even though that's 4 years later, 5 years later, we still gonna wish you congrats for that.
I
'Cause,
appreciate
yeah,
it.
that's still no doubt. You know, I always like even for me growing up, I'm like, yeah, I want to make it to one of those positions or just be recognized like that. So
Yeah,
yeah, any type of recognition is dope, man. It's
I
also
appreciate
good.
it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. With with you from going jumping from boxing to being a sports agent to being in boxing to even in film at this point, have you had any like mentors along the way that's kind of helped you or like told you like, yo, you need to go check this out because this is I can picture you doing good in this field or in this area.
I wish I'll answer it two ways. I I wish I had a mentor when I was younger, especially I graduated college at 23 and I dove headfirst into sports and entertainment. I wish I had someone that could had help me out and given me some advice during that time because I mean the road was really rocky and I had to learn a lot of things on the fly. But to be real with you, I'm glad I didn't have someone during that time, man, because just learning on the fly, figuring things out myself, and really having to look in the mirror during tough times and like forcing yourself to figure it out or doing more research or working harder than everyone that you think that's in competition with you. I wouldn't trade that for the world. So I wish I did have a mentor, but I didn't during those times trying to figure things out. People really didn't come until later on. Like my relationship with Jay Prince, like that was after, I think that was after like 3 books, I believe it was. And after Forbes, I'd already pretty much, I think I already sold my company once I got with Jay Prince. And Jay's been amazing for me this juncture in my life. But in my 20s, man, it was really just me figuring out things on the fly and asking a bunch of questions, probably being annoying to a lot of people, but I was just trying to get ahead, man, just trying to learn whatever I could to make moves.
Yeah, with that, with all the writing the books and all this, the mentor stuff, what are lessons that you know now that you wish you would have known before any of this happened?
Good question, man. I wish I would have known a lot more about like taxes. I wish I would have known a lot more about taxes.
You ain't the only one, brother.
Yeah, bro, I
Right.
know, right? I think that's
By far.
everybody. I think that's everybody. But then also, um, how important it is to have like a blueprint of what direction that you're going, man. Like I was learning on the fly, but I really didn't have a plan. I just had like, I want to do this, figure out how to do it. I think if I would have just sat down like and wrote on a piece of paper like where I wanted to be or different steps or things of that nature, I think I would have been better off. It's just with me, I think it in my head or I see it in my head and I just go for it without writing it down. So I'm 34 now. I'm starting to forget a lot of things. And honestly, if I wouldn't have got the email from you guys, I would have forgot about the podcast. So I appreciate y'all that. I appreciate y'all sending that. But I wish I would have wrote more things down when the journey first started, and it really would have helped me. Probably expedited a couple of things to where I'm at right now, man. So I wish I would have wrote more things down at a younger age.
That is definitely interesting. I think we everyone has when you're looking in retrospect kind of like, I wish I had did this or wish I had did that. Just, hindsight's always 2020, right?
2020, right.
So let me ask you this. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. What's the dream fight you wish would have happened?
Dream fight I wish that would have happened.
That didn't happen that you wish would have happened, whether it be rumored or whether it be something just kind of like, man, that would have been a great between two gladiators, whether it be heavyweights down to weatherweight. Like,
I really wish, Muhammad, even Muhammad in his later stage, Muhammad and Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson fought Larry Holmes. And even though he knocked Larry out or whatever it may be, but just seeing a vintage heavyweight, a guy that was like heavyweight royalty, essentially, to see him fighting against a guy that's like a young bull that is the next best thing. I would have loved to see Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson in the ring. Older Muhammad Ali, of course, I think he would have succumbed to the power of Mike Tyson and just how his lateral movement, his head movement, it was crazy. It was something that I think the older fighters had never seen before, or if they saw it, they were just so much older now. The reflex is slowing down. Father Time is undefeated, as you guys know. So that would have been a dope fight to watch, though. Mike Tyson versus Muhammad Ali.
So is Mike Tyson your favorite boxer of all time?
No. He's actually not. He's actually not, man. My favorite boxer is either between. I love Jermaine Taylor. Him and I both are left-handed, so I learned a lot from Jermaine Taylor, who's from Arkansas. I'm a big fan of Bernard Hopkins inside the ring. Outside the ring, not so much, but inside the ring, big fan of Bernard Hopkins. And then, of course, you can't name a favorite list without having Floyd Mayweather and Muhammad Ali on there. So those would be my top guys. I don't think I have a favorite, but those would be my top guys.
Not a bad list. List. Roy Jr.'s missing, but that's a great list.
If I would have had if I would have to name a top 5 or a top 10, Roy's definitely on the list. With Floyd and Roy, those are two guys that I don't think you have a top 10 list without having them on there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You mentioned being a lefty and having to learn from a lot from Hop. What's like some other things that when it comes to boxing that is hard to pick up or hard to do, or just learning that or may not know from just being an audience?
Yeah, fighting and boxing are two different things. You can be the baddest street fighter from wherever you're from, but once you get in the boxing ring, it's totally different, man. From technique, people think brute strength will get you far in the sport of boxing, and honestly, it does not, especially if you're fighting against a technically sound boxer. So the most difficult transition for me personally was learning that, okay, this is not, it may be a fight, but this is really a chess match with your hands and your mind, because you go in with the mindset that you have in the street to where, all right, I'm going to knock this person out within the first round of the fight. 3 minutes is a long time in a boxing ring. It's an eternity. So if you go out there trying to go for broke within the first minute and you gas out and the other person is just keeping their composure and watching you miss punches, takes a lot out of you, and you probably won't make it out of the first round if you come in with the anger and the brute strength. So learning that when you're boxing, it's totally different from fighting, and you have to keep your composure, keep your discipline, and you have to really play chess inside the boxing ring, man. But I think it's one of the most difficult sports. I trained a little bit of MMA, and I didn't find it to be as difficult as boxing, but boxing is probably the hardest sport to cross over and make an adjustment to and be successful in the sport.
Yeah, with that, with the boxing and the managing part, what was that transition like from going from the boxing and then now managing and being in charge of the boxers?
Well, I actually had no plans to be on the business side of boxing. I was intrigued, but I didn't think that it was gonna go that way. I honestly had plans to be the best NBA agent in the world when I was 23 years old, and I got certified at 24, and that was my focal point. But boxing just kept pulling me, man, and there was just more people that needed help or needed advice. And before I knew it, I was representing I think Jerry Belmontes was 11-0. He was undefeated at the time, and he was a free agent. He was just dropped from one of the best promotional companies in boxing, which was Top Rank. And I was managing him, so I had a lot of leverage, and a lot of people wanted to talk to me about what was his next move. So I pretty much a Ferrari fell. I barely knew how to drive, and I barely knew anything about the street. It's just a Ferrari fell in my lap, and everyone wanted to either drive it or be in the passenger seat or at least just have access to it, man. So Jerry helped. His stature and who he was as a fighter helped me transition to become a boxing manager and actually make a lot of noise at such a young age. But I had something to sell. It wasn't just me coming in and like really scratching from the total bottom. I was at the bottom, but I was in a really, really nice car at the bottom, and I had to figure out things from there.
Now, one of the things you brought up something just really interesting. You went from boxing, being a boxer, and then you went to MMA. And a lot of people like I said earlier, like to pit MMA versus boxing, right? How was that transition? Like, how was that? Like, what misconceptions do people have about that transition from boxing to
well,
MMA?
I did a little MMA training. I didn't actually get in the octagon, and that's something I'm not.
No,
I'm not gonna get in the octagon. I was an amateur fighter in college, and then once I graduated, I went to live with CJ Miles. He was living in Utah playing for the Jazz at the time, and my focal point was sports agent, basketball. I didn't care about boxing or anything else. So the transition, honestly, it wasn't hard from going from boxing to representing the fighters. The most difficult thing was like letting go of, all right, the dream of what I wanted from an NBA sports agent standpoint. I'm going to have to set that aside, and eventually I had to completely let it go because boxing became like my everything essentially. So I wouldn't say the transition was difficult. It was hard letting go of what my initial like goal and my dream was. And that's why now I'm so open to things, man, because you really never know how it's going to go. Although I fought in college and I love boxing, Jerry Belmontes actually came to watch me fight one night, and we took a picture after the fight. No way. We used to see each other at the club, man. He used to be at the club with his girlfriend, and everyone knew who he was. I was in college, so we would always cross paths and always show respect to each other, man. But if you would have told either of us, like, hey, in the next 5 years, you guys are going to be working together and you're going to like fight for a world title and going to make lots of money, I would have been like, bro, this person is crazy. You know what I'm saying? And for it to happen the way that it did, man, it's something out of a movie or a book. I never could have like planned this myself. So I'm open to whatever, man. I don't try to put myself in a box. I'm open to whatever, because I understand weird, strong blows. You just gotta be ready for it.
How was that pivot going from dropping? Like, what's the main thing? Like, if someone's listening out here, and maybe it's not boxing, but maybe it's trying to go from a professional career to moving into the business world.
Mm-hmm.
What are some keys to making that pivot that helped you transition from letting go of the dream to going to the business side?
To be honest, man, I just have this by any means necessary mindset. Like that's what helped me out. Like by any means necessary. And of course, that's a term that's coined, but like that was my mindset, by any means necessary. So it was difficult letting go of one thing and then like having to transition and focus on something else. But like once I kind of sat back and saw things in my head of how I wanted things to go, but then most importantly, now you're in the business of representing another person. Like they're putting their career in your hands. So I'm thinking of things in my head, but I'm really focusing on what this fighter wants, where he wants to be. He has a son, he has a kid on the way, he has a wife, he has a family. So I had to really get my mind wrapped around where he wants to be. And I had to map things out of how I could help get him there. I think for any sports agent or any boxing manager, think of I'm the chauffeur. it's my job to get the athlete to the dance safely. So I always told my client, like, look, bruh, I'm gonna make sure you're in the nice car. I'm gonna make sure we get there safely. I'm gonna make sure we get there in style. I'm gonna walk you to the door and I'm gonna open the door, but I can't walk in and dance with you or help you dance or make you dance. Once you get in here, you have to dance yourself and you have to make things happen for you. So I always looked at myself as like a chauffeur for the athletes. My job to get them there safely and in style, but I can't dance for you.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect analogy. You know, there's only so much that you can do, and at a certain point, it's up to you to kind of do the rest. And it's like the perfect hand up to a perfect pass or to a perfect score. Um, so what? So I know you've written 5 books, and I know we have some of these books.
Oh, word, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, because you know, wifey looking out, so she's
word.
definitely big fan, big supporter. So what made you get into writing books,
Honestly, like I said, man, it's my mind, bro. I was on a plane. I was on a plane going to Salt Lake City, Utah, to see my ex girlfriend at the time, and I was just in the air, and I'm like, yo, this entrepreneurship journey is crazy. Like I should write a book. Like, you all of you guys have probably said that before. I should write a book about this. Like I had that thought, and then I was sitting on the plane. This is the time I did end up like putting out a pen and a piece of paper. I kind of wrote down what I wanted to do or what I wanted to name the book, and everything just started to come to me pretty quickly, man. So yeah, I thought of it, and I was like, forget it, I'm gonna just do it. And what's crazy about that story, I get to Utah and I had a meeting the next day. So I hired a driver to take me to the meeting. And he picked me up from my ex's house. Her name is Tiffany. And he drives me downtown. I have the meeting and the meeting kind of goes over. So I held him up a little bit. So I had him stop at this gas station. I wanted to give him a tip. So while we're on the way to the gas station, I'm on the phone with one of my good friends. His name is Bleak. And I'm telling him about the book idea. I'm like, man, I want to write this book. I just don't know how I'm going to do it or how to get started. I never wrote a book before, but like I'll figure it out. So I go in the gas station, get the tip. So when he drops me back off at Tiffany's house, he was like, hey, I'm not supposed to do this, but like I'm an author, but I'm also an editor. I can help you with your book if you're really serious about it. He gave me his card, and the card had a 214 number on it. So we're in Utah, but that's a Dallas area code. And I'm like, wait, this dude is from Dallas also? So I gave him a call later on that day, and we hit it off, man. So each of those books you're holding, plus the recent one I just wrote, like he's literally been my editor. He's held me down through 5 books, man. And it all came from me having a conversation in a car about possibly writing a book, but it started in my head. So that's how I got 5 books down, man. I thought of it, said I should do it, did it, but I met someone along the way who held my hand through that entire thing process. So it was dope how it all came together.
That is pretty dope. Do you have a favorite out of the books that you've written so far?
Ooh, probably Dark Horse. My memoirs as a boxing manager. Yeah. That's probably the favorite because like I actually just retired from boxing management last year. So there were a lot of stories in there, man, that I think people, you see sports agents or whatever, and okay, they negotiate the contracts for the athlete. They don't really give you deep backstories on like the BS that goes on behind the scenes of being a sports agent. So for me, I'm like, man, boxing management has been crazy. Like some of the stories that happen, like sometimes it was just me and another person. I'm like, bro, if no one else was here, I don't think anybody would believe what just happened. I brought up Bernard Hopkins earlier, and when I announced that I was starting Protect Yourself at All Times, Bernard actually flew to Dallas to meet with me, and he stayed here for 2 days. Man, we chopped it up about life, about boxing. Like it was an amazing experience to have a legend like that think so much of me and my initiative, man. But when it came time to him to actually kind of walk with me on the initiative, everything he talked about, he kind of backpedaled on a lot of things. So I wrote about that experience. I wrote about experiences with Jay Prince, invited me to his private island in Belize. And I didn't know you had to, like, you can't just fly into Belize and then go to his island. You had to fly into Belize City, and then there was another flight, like another plane that would take you to the island. But that flight was more expensive than the round trip flight. I think it was like $1,500 for like the private plane to take me 15 minutes to his island. So I was like, damn, I really want to go. But at the time, I'm like, bro, I got 1,500 to spend on a 15-minute flight. Like I can't do it. But yeah, there was so many stories, man, that I have in there. So Dark Horse is by far my favorite book.
Yeah, that's good. So what are any like misconceptions that people listening or viewing this, like there's any misconceptions you want to tell them about like being a sports agent?
Oh yeah, a lot of misconceptions. Like from the NBA standpoint, just because you love the game of basketball and you think that you'll be a great sports agent, one, if you don't know any NBA players, if you don't have any NBA friends, associates, or you don't know any college players for that matter, or even like standout high school players, if you don't know anybody, you may want to pump your brakes on trying to get in so soon. But then on top of that, if you're going to be independent, like not working with a certain company, then you better have millions of dollars behind you, because the players don't start getting paid essentially until the fall. So the draft is usually in the springtime, and then you got summer workouts or whatever. Like these guys are going to want nice cars, maybe a house, maybe they're going to want jewelry or whatever it may be. Agent, you got to bankroll that. You have to make sure that they're good. With the NFL side of things, I think you pretty much invest 30 grand to get guys ready for the draft, and you don't get that money back. That's not something that is going to come back to you from the athlete. You're showing them your good faith of, look, we're going to pay for you to get ready for the draft, and it's something that's not going to come back to you. So the misconception is that it's okay getting licensed and taking the tests, like that can be relatively easy. But man, if you don't have the money or if you don't have the relationships, you'll just have the certificate and you'll be able to tell people like, yeah, I'm a sports agent, but no, I lived with an NBA player. Although I wasn't his licensed like agent, I lived with the player and I was given opportunities by other guys. But when it came time to actually sign guys, like the things that they needed, the things that the families needed, I'm like, wait, I don't have that. I don't have the type of money. Yeah, I can just become an agent and take over things, but nah, if you ain't have the money or the relationships, yeah, it's gonna be a impossible uphill battle.
So, Adrian, do you have a story similar to the Jay Prince stories you told us with the boxing, like how you had to go, how you didn't know you can just fly into Belize and just kind of, you have one like that on the NBA side? Because I know you spent a lot of time there too. Do you have any good NBA stories that you can tell without getting yourself in trouble? Without, you know,
I'm trying to think.
I don't want, you don't want to no bridges burned, but
yeah. I'm trying to really think, man. Okay, I'll say this. My boy, who's now the associate head coach of the New York Knicks, Johnny Bryant. He at the time was living in Utah. He had his own skills academy. So I was looking, and it's just funny how all this happened together, man. Johnny wanted me, if I was looking to sign Tony Mitchell in 2012. Tony Mitchell ended up being the second round pick of the Detroit Pistons. So I had this mindset of, okay, sign Tony and take him to Utah to work out with Johnny, and Johnny will get him ready and make him more versatile for the draft. So flying to Utah, I'm hanging out with Johnny. So Johnny takes me to Utah Jazz facility. He's working out Paul Millsap and his brothers. Marvin Williams had just got traded to the Jazz. So Marv is on one side of the court working out, going through individuals, and then Johnny's on the other side of the court taking the Millside brothers through workouts, pretty much auditioning for me. So I'm sitting there kind of just watching both workouts or whatever because I knew of Marvin Williams. Marv ended up coming up to me between his workout and introduced himself or whatever it may be, and he wanted to know who Johnny was. He wanted to know like who was the guy to work out with in Utah. So, and this is I always kind of get chills like telling the story. Before we left the facility, I told Johnny like, "Hey, Marv wanted to know who you were or whatever it may be," and he was out for real. He was like, "Yo, I should go back in and introduce myself or whatever." I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead, do your thing. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go on the phone call with Tony and see where we're at." While I'm on the phone call with Tony, Tony's giving me bad news that he's not gonna sign with me, that he's gonna go with CAA, which is a larger agency. So I'm holding the phone, like in the parking lot, just getting bad news. Like, come on, man. Johnny comes out smiling ear to ear, and he's like, "Yo, bro, thank you so much for chopping it up with Marv, man. But get this, the Utah Jazz are interested in hiring me as a coach, man. So like, yo, us just being here, I not only got another contact with a player, but I think I'm gonna start coaching for the Jazz." So even though like I didn't sign Tony, and I didn't really get anything out of that, but just being there and seeing Johnny's career like take off based off of something he was looking to do for me, like that was crazy. And then my relationship with Marvin Williams just grew over the years to where he became an investor and helped out with one of the world title fights that I was a part of. Just that one day and having like those three entities in one place, man, it was just powerful. So now to see Johnny's the associate head coach, Marv is retired or whatever it may be, but you know what I'm saying, still a business partner essentially. It's just funny how the world works, man, and how things come about. But that was one of the craziest stories I had. Not quite like the island, but that was a crazy story I had from the NBA because now both of those guys are light years of where they were at that particular time. So that was a really dope story.
No, that is a dope story, and now I'm looking at everyone involved in the party in that story differently now. So especially
Word.
I'm gonna keep my eyes on the guy in New York too. I definitely know my brother will as well.
Yeah,
So
anytime you get you can get connected to Thibs. Like that's being a Chicago Bull and Chicago Bulls fan and growing up in there. And you know, we for people that has been down, so the Thibs and the Derrick Rose and those guys, we have a fondness in our hearts. So anyone attached to Thibs automatically gets a seal of approval in my book, except for Jim Boylan, but we're not gonna talk about that. Had to shoot fire.
yeah, we're not gonna slander Jim Boylan today, but we say that another day. But yeah, that takes care of this first portion of our interview. So now we're gonna transition into our rapid fire round, which we call the game within the game. So it's just a couple questions we kind of ask you like either or, and just to get your opinion or your responses. We have like a kind of like a scoreboard on our side of the running tallies of what people have said and what people have responded. But anyway, so my question for you is, are you ready to play?
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna start off light. We're gonna start off with something simple, something slight. Are you a TV show person or movies? TV shows or
Movies.
movies?
Movies. Yeah, movies.
Oof.
Movies.
Oof.
Yeah.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
Training Day.
Okay. Okay. All right, Jake. Absolutely. But my God.
Mark, what's your favorite?
Mine?
Yeah.
See, I'm too much. I'm like I'm a movie junkie. So it depends on what, you know, I can go like sci-fi, action, you know, like it just depends on what realm you're in. So, you know, so you gotta give me a category that I can give you my favorite movie.
No, I can't give you a category. B, can you give him a category?
I give you a sports category, sports podcast, sports category.
Favorite sports movie has to probably be Remember the Titans. It's between that. It's between that, and honestly, yeah, it's got to be. It's got to the most quoted movie or the most impactful movie for me. It has to be Remember the Titans. So, absolutely, I could go. Yeah, it's got to be that.
Above
Yeah.
the rim is mine for sports.
I can't be mad at that either.
Yeah, I gotta go above the rim. Like white men can't jump.
I can't go. That's another one. Can't be mad
That's
at that.
classic. Yeah, that's a classic.
Cannot be mad at that either.
Yeah.
I just think because I got kids and they, it just.
Yeah.
I'm blaming it on the kids.
Sorry. Next question we have is chocolate chip cookies or oatmeal cookies?
Chocolate chip. Chocolate chip, without a doubt.
No. Chocolate chip cookies are good. I could go for an oatmeal raisin here or there.
I hate raisins, man. So mixing raisins in with cookies, I just can't. I can't get down with it. Definitely chocolate chip.
Desmond,
was your chocolate chip or was yours oatmeal? How would you?
I'm an oatmeal person. So, but I'll definitely go and cook some good chocolate chip cookies. Matter of fact, I was eating some chocolate chip cookies earlier today. So I'm gonna pick oatmeal raisins, but I definitely be cheating on oatmeal with chocolate chip.
Brady, you said you're more of an oatmeal.
Yeah, I mean, I can do chocolate chip all the time, but if there's oatmeal raisin there in the mix, I kind of go for it because sometimes it's not. I don't get it all that often, so I kind of want to. Sometimes when I get that chance, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm like Adrian. I'm chocolate chip. The only time of oatmeal I'm gonna touch is them oatmeal cream pies. Like those are,
bro. Exactly, bro.
Like we have I got 4 boys, and we go through like the big, humongous box in like 3 days.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. My question for you is this is an either or. Mike Tyson or Evander Holyfield?
Oh, Mike is just, aside from him fighting, like his knockout ability, it's just his personality. Like outside the ring, from controversial Mike to cool Mike to intellectual Mike to I always like to say philosophizer Mike. Like, bro, he just give you so many different angles, man, that you got to go with Mike.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. If I had to pick, I pick Mike just for all those same reasons you gave. I think Evander's one of the most underrated boxers of all time.
Agreed.
Because he's, he didn't have the necessarily knockout power that Mike did, but he could just take a beating.
Yeah.
And then somehow it went up, be ahead on points. So
yeah.
But yeah, what about you two? What about Dez and Brady?
I'm not too big into fighting. I don't know too much about the backgrounds of either one of these, but just because I know Mike Tyson more, I think I'd go on that direction.
Got you.
I'm picking Mike.
Yeah, like I said, can't be wrong with that. Can't go wrong with that one at all.
So I got another either or here for you. Roy Jones Jr. or Floyd Mayweather?
Ooh, man. That's a damn good question. I gotta. Well, you have to ask me that. Can somebody else go? Because I'm like, I think I got it. I think I got an answer. I don't know if we talk about entertainment. If it's entertainment wise, you got to go Roy. Roy's giving you the most entertainment in the ring. But as far as like a guy that can just stand in front of you with his hands down and you can't hit him at all, I got to go Roy. I got to go Roy Jones Jr. Like, if I had to pick who to watch, it's Roy Jones for sure.
Absolutely, Roy Jones Jr. I met Roy when I was living in Vegas for 4 years. The dude pulled up to the barbershop at 8:00 in the morning in a gold limo and sat down right next to me. And for 2 hours, we had like a dope conversation. He was such a down to earth cat. So absolutely, is Roy Jones Jr. There's no disrespect to Floyd.
Yeah.
Floyd. I also had a run in with Floyd in Vegas too. I can tell you all about that off wax. So that's an off wax conversation. But yeah, I ran into Floyd too. But no, Roy Jones Jr. Like that was my Superman in the early 2000s. So absolutely. Dez?
I'm going Roy Jones, man. I grew up watching Roy, so it was always a Saturday night thing. We sit down, we watching Roy Jones Jr.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I'm going Floyd. I don't really know too much about Jones Jr. So, but I mean, I might not shouldn't say anything. I might.
No, Ray. So here's what you do. So you have an assignment. You have to go and go on YouTube binge, and you see what Roy Jones Jr. was doing, and it was crazy how fast this guy was.
Yeah.
Like you see all these athletes that have turned into, and not just entertainers, but they went into movies. Like even at the height of Roy Jones Jr. boxing, he was in The Matrix. Like that's how he was that dope of an athlete that he could, and he played other sports too. Like they had back in the day, they had the rock and jock and stuff like that. He could play all sports, but he was the dude was just a phenomenal talent. That just Roy Jones Jr. was one of the, like I said, like Adrian said, if you go 10 boxes and you haven't named Roy Jones Jr., your list is crap.
So same, yeah, straight up.
So here we go. Next question is: so are you going? So now I know you get into the film and stuff. So do you prefer the Rocky movie franchise or the Creed franchise?
Neither.
Oh, elaborate! I like it. Elaborate. Let's
okay. All right, and I know a lot of like Rocky fans is gonna be upset, but just both of them were like really cheesy. Like, and given the time that Rocky was created, I mean, it was cool during that time or whatever. But I've yet to see a boxing movie that, I get it. It's Hollywood, so everything is Hollywood. It's not real. It's a depiction essentially of like things that were based off of whatever. I think Rocky's story was based off of Chuck Webner, former professional boxer who wasn't really good, and they kind of mix some things in to make it like he was just this amazing fighter. But I've yet to see a boxing movie that felt real, where it's like I left the theater, I finished watching it thinking that was like spot on. So from the Rocky movies to the Creed movies to the movie Southpaw with I can't think of the guy's name, Jake
Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, exactly. Even that was really cheesy. It was really cheesy done. So impressive. At the end of the day, I don't like to talk down on anybody's work, but from me being a boxing guy inside the ring and then being on the business side, and now I'm behind the camera, I'm not a fan of the Rocky movies. I watched all of them and I'm like, people actually like this. And then I watch Creed and I'm like, this is no better at all. So I'm not a fan of either, man. I'm gonna have to throw my hat in on that one. I'm not a fan of either series. Either.
Wow. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting that.
I'm speechless. I get it. I get it. Don't worry about the Rocky picture in the background. Don't worry.
I saw that. I was going to say something, but I left it alone. But I saw that.
No, that's all good. I mean, I thought it was a dope quote, but yeah, I absolutely. For those who have been in, I've known a couple boxers, and now I know another one. So for those who have, it's usually unanimous. Those who have been in the ring despise Rocky and despise any boxing movie because you can't. It's not, they say it's not real. It's not even close to me. It doesn't even look real. Like if you go back and look, like the Rockies don't hold up. Like you like the punches are 5 feet away. You can see the head.
Yeah.
No, that's not. Now Michael B. Jordan did get knocked out like doing his stuff. Like he was really trying to make it look as real as possible. But
right.
But it's still no, it's not. It's not. So I get it. Again, all respect due for those who have been in the ring, because that's not an easy thing whatsoever.
At all, man. At all.
One of the things that you just mentioned, though, because I don't think we really talked about it much, your movies. Like you say, you're getting behind this, like you're getting behind the, behind the film and behind the camera. Mm-hmm. What are some projects that you're trying to get involved in that you can talk about, or not even necessarily talk about, but what things that kind of inspire you to do that? So
I actually just on my YouTube page, I just created Protect Yourself at All Times YouTube page. And, I've actually been in filmmaking essentially because the first document, I've done all the projects myself. So my first project was Adrian Clark, Before the Bell. And it was like given an angle of a boxing manager before the fight happens, and then we did some stuff while the fight was going on, and then after the fight with my client and myself. But I did all of that, with the production team. 7-part series that Everlast Worldwide, the boxing glove company, they sponsored. And I had Evander Holyfield's son, Evan Holyfield. He featured Willie Monroe Jr., former world title challenger, Derrick James, who's currently trainer for Errol Spence Jr. And Jamal Charlo. But I was just breaking down to the fighters and general public how the boxing business is. Most people, you just want to see a fight, or the only thing you know is a fight, but there's so many dynamics that go into making a fight happen. And if you have any interest in like sports management or the sports and entertainment side, the business side of things, then you'll be interested in protect yourself at all times. And then the series that I did, it's a 7-part series, and I go through talking about the boxing manager process. And I took one of my friends, American, and now she's in accounting. But we had her apply for a boxing manager's license through the state of Texas. Now she knows nothing about the sport of boxing, and as you see when you watch the video, I asked her certain questions that most boxing people would know. If you're in the business of the sport, you have to know these questions, and she had no clue. But the state of Texas still licensed her as a boxing manager. She didn't have to take a test. There was no background check. She just sent in an application and $100, and the state of Texas sent her a license to become a boxing manager. So who they may have a college degree, but in regards to the ethics of business in that particular genre, they know nothing about the sport. They know nothing about the ethics. They know nothing about the negotiation process, but yet they're still licensed to negotiate and put athletes under contract. So I depicted that in episode 3, and I'm pretty sure it blew a lot of people away, because it's like, yo, this girl is beautiful, and yeah, she's educated and all those things, but she knows nothing about boxing. But yet, and still, the state of Texas, the boxing commission, still licensed her when she knows nothing about the sport, and has no plans to know nothing about the sport. It just, we did it for I like ruffling feathers. So from a filmmaker standpoint, man, because I'm actually doing my first independent film in the fall, and like it's gonna ruffle a lot of feathers. I can't go deep into detail on it, but that's the type of if I get deep in this thing as far as filmmaking goes, I'm gonna ruffle feathers, and I have to do everything independently, because trying to partner with someone, they're like, oh no, we don't want to cross that bridge, or we don't want to make this person mad. And for me, I'm like, I don't care. Like what's the in my head? It's like, yo, what's the worst that can happen, or like what are they gonna do to me once they see this depiction of this angle or whatever? And as long as I'm not no defamation of character, as long as I'm not like talking down or making up fictitious things about somebody, my art is my art, man. So my films are gonna be probably really controversial, and I'm gonna ruffle some feathers, but whatever.
I'm here for all of it.
It's like I'm at a match, just eating popcorn, just watching. So
Right. I think that's what made Spike Lee so great, because it's like you go against the grain of what people want to see, so to speak. And he touched on like racial divide and different things that were going on during the time of like the early 80s, late 80s, early 90s. He depicted those things. John Singleton did a great job with Boys in the Hood. The Hughes brothers did a great job with
Man, that's a Society.
Thank you. You got me. So it's like they did an amazing job by like going against the grain and not softening things up and showing exactly how it is. That's my mindset when it comes to filmmaking. I appreciate that.
Like I said, I'm here for all of it.
Word. Word.
So one of the final questions we're getting here with the rapid fire section is, if you could take over any organization or a team, which one would you take over? And it could be in any professional sports.
It's a great question. I'm a Texas guy, man. I'm like Dallas is home for me, but I'm really big on the state of Texas. So I would have to say the one team that I would take over. I can't say that. I can't. It'll have to be the Dallas Mavericks. I'm a
Whoa!
I'm a big basketball fan.
Kicking Cuban to the curb.
I'll have to do basketball because honestly, I feel like Texas we have a lot of great players that come out of the state of Texas, and a lot of them end up becoming free. I feel like the Mavericks don't do a good job of centering in on the hometown guys. No, Mark does a great job of Donnie does a great job of pulling in the right players. I mean, to trade for Luka, I'm not a Mavericks fan, but I was hoping, because I watched that kid throughout his circuit overseas, and I kept saying like, "Yo, this dude is." I was really pleased to see that they traded up to get him in the draft. But Dallas, the Mavericks are essentially becoming an overseas team. It's like most of the marquee players are from the European market or the overseas market. So I would look to make Dallas a hotbed, man, to where it's like guys want to go play in Miami or LA or even Atlanta for that matter. But to build a team that would make Dallas a place where free agents will want to come.
I think Mark would appreciate that.
Absolutely, like that's my second team is the Mavs. So and he's right. Luka is that dude.
That's a cold-blooded.
That's a cold-blooded dude,
man.
And think about it, he doesn't look like he should be as good as he is, but he is.
I know, right?
He looks like your neighbor that cuts the grass.
I've seen a few guys recently that favor him or whatever, and I'm like, bro, Luka's walking dogs for a living now. Man. He doesn't look like a hooper, but bro, you get him on that court, man, and he's been pro since he was 14, 15 years old. So, like he said, like scoring in the NBA is easy. I mean, nobody really plays defense for that matter, but he makes it look really easy, man. So I'm a big fan of Luka, but yeah, I would like to see Dallas do more as far as the team goes.
Gotcha.
So that kind of wraps up our interview and our podcast for today. I'd like to thank you, Adrian, for joining us. For the people listening and viewing this, where can they find you and follow you at?
On Twitter, which I'm never on Twitter, but I'm the Adrian Clark on Twitter. Don't tweet me because I won't get it until like 2 months after you actually tweet me. So I think I'm most active on Facebook, Adrian Clark, and on Instagram, AC_Clark. I'm active on those, and I respond to DMs or whatever on those more rapidly. On Twitter, I will never get it, but I'm also on LinkedIn, which is a little bit more professional. And to me, LinkedIn is just as important as Facebook or Instagram. But I do a good job of getting back to individuals that have questions or whatever it may be. So feel free to reach out to me on any of those. And my email address is adrian@pyaat.org. So yeah, reach out to me, man, and I always have my phones on me. So more than likely I'll get back to you. If you start asking too many questions, then I'm gonna either bill you for consulting or I'm gonna instruct you to get with Tashina and set up a consulting call. But anything that's ground level, man, I'm always gonna get back to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I would like to again thank you for joining us. Thank you, Mark, for getting on with Desmond and I during this podcast. For those listening, you can follow us on Instagram at capturing_the_game_pod. You can find us on Twitter at CTG_podcast, and you can search us up on YouTube and Facebook at Capture the Game Pod. Again, I'd like to thank you guys for joining us today, and that concludes our podcast today.